We're live. Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Inspiring Time with Juliet here on Mount Moriah Radio and Mount Moriah Television. Oh my goodness, I've got a wonderful guest today. So please get that cup of tea, get that water, glass of water, come and sit down and let us just talk. We're going to be talking about self love. We're going to talk about feeling motivated and what motivates you. So if you have a friend that you need to call, please do call them or share this video, share it wherever you are. Okay, so this lady that I'm going to introduce to you now, she's my guest today. She's a motivational speaker, she's an author, she's a coach. She has an authority on mindset, and confidence, mental health, and the power of connection. This lady, she used to be an autistic black female who was abandoned when she was very little. Okay, and she was found when she was 6 weeks old, and she's gone through a lot of adversity in her life. And now she is an expert in turning her pain into power, into blessing to many. I am going to welcome her in a minute. This lady has got books that have been bestsellers. We have Power Lift Your Career, and she's also the host of a podcast called Everything You Need to Know to Succeed. And I've got with me Ife Thomas. Ife Thomas, you are welcome to my show today. You're welcome to Inspiring Time with Juliet. God bless you, lady.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Juliet. I really appreciate it. And I'm very excited to get into the conversation.
Oh, that's brilliant. Listen, I've said a little bit about you, but I know that you have done a lot of things. Please tell us more about yourself, please.
Okay. Well, you did a great intro explaining like a little bit about me and my story, and how I've become a mindset and confidence coach and a motivational speaker. It was really down to where I started my career. So at the age of 9, I started dancing. I trained as a dancer, and I wasn't very good at it. I struggled. I wasn't very flexible, didn't have much coordination, but I loved the way it made me feel when I was in the dance studio and I was being given the steps. And at 9 years old, I had this moment where I realized I am happier and more comfortable and confident when someone's showing me what to do. So that became my place that I would look forward to going. When I wasn't in the dance studio and I wasn't practicing at home, I felt like there was nothing else that brought me that level of joy. So I trained as a dancer. And then as I got older, I asked my dance teacher, what should I do? I want to be a professional dancer. And she said, you need to go to a top London performing arts college where you can, go and train. So I applied for the prestigious Erdang Academy, which was in Covent Garden at the time. And I got in, and it was amazing to get into such a prestigious performing arts college. So when I got there, I did 4 years of training, and during the time, I really was stretched beyond my. I started off, and I recognized quite quickly on that I wasn't as good as a lot of the other dancers. When I was
Mm,
standing at the ballet bar, looking in the mirror, I could see the reflection of me, and I could see the reflection of the other dancers, and they were much more trained than I was. So I did have this sense of, am I good enough to be here? But at the same
mm,
time, I was so grateful that I had the opportunity that I thought I'm going to work my butt off. So I did. I worked really,
yeah.
really hard, trained, worked on my technique and practiced. And after 4 years, I was lucky enough to be offered the chance to perform in a off West End show in a musical called Pearly. And that was the first dance job I had. And it gave me this real boost of confidence. One, people want to employ me to perform. And then I suppose the rest is history. I ended up getting onto a show, BBC Dance X show, which was seen by millions of viewers for weeks watching me perform. And then I started performing for various artists. And I suppose a highlight was Michael Jackson's choreographer choosing me to go and do an advert in Japan. So I got to really do some things that I loved. But during that whole
Mm.
journey, one of the biggest things I've taken with me in what I do now is that you don't have to be great to get started. And that even if you do start off not very good, you can always
Mm.
improve, you can always develop. And to develop, you
Yeah.
have to ask people what to do. And there was this one kind of profound moment in my, what I look back on now. As a dancer, I didn't really have pretty feet. So, some dancers, they point their feet and they look beautiful, like swan
Yeah,
feet.
we do. Yes.
My feet weren't like that. They were okay, but I didn't really
Mm.
know how to make it look beautiful. And I remember this one dance teacher at the college that I was at said to me, you have to work on this tiny little muscle, which is called the metatarsal muscle. And I didn't know what the metatarsal muscle was, but I learned that it's a really small muscle on the top of your foot. And she told me to
Yeah.
work on building that muscle. So every day I would train that tiny muscle that nobody could see I was training. And after about 3 years, it started to get so strong that I could move my foot into a lovely point. And
Wow.
that really kind of is what I do now. Most people come to me because they want to reach a goal, but they don't know how to
Mm-hmm.
reach it, whether it's mindset, mental health, feeling good about themselves, reaching a financial goal or a physical goal or a business goal, whatever it is. People come to me with an idea of what they want. And then I break down the steps for them because I recognized in my life is if someone shows you the steps and you're willing and you
Yeah.
really want
And
it,
you can roll with it. Yes.
you get there.
And you
So
can roll
that,
with it. And
yeah.
in your journey in dancing and doing all of this, you've also met some famous people, I understand. You mind telling
Yeah,
us about these people?
I've met quite a lot of
I
famous
think you
people,
mentioned Michael Jackson, yes.
but I think some of the people. So I've met every time I've met somebody who's like an icon, and I think
Yeah.
that's another thing. Whenever I was in a situation or a space where there was somebody of that kind of level, that stature, the thing what always inspired me is that I know that for them to get to that level, they'd have worked really hard. Like it was obvious. I remember I was at X Factor Studios, and they had every week they would have like special guests come on. And this one, I can tell you a story about every week, but this one week, Mariah Carey was there, and she was, and I went backstage so I could be on the
Yeah.
side of the stage so I could watch her walk onto the stage and sing. And I will never forget, I was standing there backstage watching Mariah Carey perform on stage and to the millions of viewers at home, and the goosebumps that went through my, like, just when her
Wow.
voice, the sound, like, I'm a Mariah Carey fan anyway, so I'd listened to all of her albums for years, but actually hearing her live with my own
Mm.
ears, that was a moment when I thought this woman is an
Wow.
incredible talent. Like, tears were just running down my face because
Wow.
the voice is just
Mm.
like when you hear it on a CD, it's compressed or
Yeah.
through the
Yeah.
TV, but live. And I can say that for pretty much everyone. Leona Lewis, just
Yeah.
standing behind her as one of the backing choir singers and getting to be behind her a couple of times and hearing her sing the song Run, the
Mm.
quality and the technique and the pure sound of her voice just inspired me. And I
Yeah.
think whatever it is you want to do, be excellent at it, because when you are, it's a whole nother level. It breaks through this other barrier. And I
Mhm.
met, who else did I meet? I met George Michael. Um, when
Wow.
he's no longer here anymore, God rest his soul. When I
Mm.
met him, I was walking through the corridor. So, and I just stopped and said, "Oh my gosh, hi, nice to meet you," and shook his hand. And I mean, it's just like really looked at me and
Mm.
just really acknowledged me and said hello.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think just being surrounded by these so many incredible, hardworking, talented performers just
Mm.
reminded me that if you want to become successful, if you want to be great, you really need to have a
Yeah.
certain level of work ethic, a certain level of professionalism, and you have to be willing to show up and be vulnerable and be criticized,
Yeah.
and I never got to meet Michael Jackson. I auditioned for This Is It tour. I remember like when he was going to come, and I remember thinking, oh my gosh, this would be the dancer's dream. But one thing that I do remember is that I went online once and saw Michael Jackson performing and saw all the negative comments. And it just really made, and I saw Beyonce gets those negative comments. It just made me think this: you have to be willing to put yourself out there. You have to be vulnerable. Not everyone's going to like you. People will put a dislike. You remember when there was the dislike button?
Yeah,
There will be
yeah, they
people.
always put a thumb down.
Yeah. And it
Yeah,
doesn't matter how good you are. You can be Michael
yeah,
Jackson, you can be
yeah.
Beyonce, you can be anyone of a certain
Mm,
level, and there'll always be someone who puts a thumb down or writes something negative. And when I saw that on my, obviously there was like 120,000 likes or something, and there was like
mm,
60,000 not likes. And I just thought, so many people won't put themselves out there because of the fear that someone
mm,
somewhere who you don't know will say they don't like you. And that
yeah,
means so many people never
mm,
become who they're meant to be and never
yeah.
really step out and get to that level because they're so afraid.
I know you are just making so much sense to me. I mean, you are making so much sense to me. Some people are just so afraid to get themselves out there because of fear of criticisms and all of. How do you maintain your self confidence, though? How do you maintain that?
Well, that's a great question, and there's a way that I can share that will help other people. Is the first thing is to have clarity. I know exactly what I'm trying to achieve, and
Mm,
you have clarity on the goals that you're trying. If you know what it is that you want and you can see it, that's the first thing, because now that's going to be your anchor and your drive to make you upload that post. It's going to make you do the thing that you're supposed to do, even if you're afraid. I sometimes do things when I'm afraid, but because I
mm,
remember what the vision is and what the goal is. And some of the things that I do to help me with my self-confidence is when I first ever went online, which was 2014, I
yeah,
put up a video. I was so
yeah,
scared. I mean, I was shaking, I was sweating because I thought, when I put this video up, people are going to say something. And then the thing that got me to put it up is I remember it. So we were living in this, we just moved into one of a really big dream house. So we moved
yeah,
into this house, and I was sitting downstairs, and we had like a cinema room downstairs, which was like at the bottom of the house. And I was sitting in there on my own watching
yeah,
Life Class by Oprah Winfrey. So there was Oprah Winfrey, and she was talking to Iyanla Van Zant, and it was called Life Class. And they're having this
yeah,
conversation about self-love and about pouring into yourself, and you pour into yourself until your cup runs over. And they were having this really powerful talk, and halfway through I must have fallen asleep. And I woke up, and I'd leant on the control during a transition moment on the screen, and it had cut off the L and it just had Ife Class. And I was like, because it just in the transition, I was like, this is a sign. This is a
yeah.
sign.
It's
Got to do it.
a
So,
yeah. Must
so
be
then
a
I was like, right,
moment.
I'm going to upload the video. And then when I was too scared to press upload, I thought, one day my goal is to work with Oprah. One day is to be in a space where Oprah Winfrey is, where I can learn from her. All of the like, she raises consciousness in every conversation. And I want to be around that. I want to be a student. I want to learn from her. And in my mind, I thought one day she might want to pass her knowledge down to someone. It could be me.
Yeah,
And then I thought, but she'll never know who I am if I never put
mm,
myself out there. So
yeah.
every time I posted a video, I'd think Oprah could be seeing this. Oprah
So
could see this. And that's
yeah,
how, and this is 10 years later.
yeah,
Every time I post a video, I think, if Oprah was to see this, would I be happy with this
yeah.
being my audition video? And that's how
Mhm.
I do it. You have to have an anchor, you have to have a desire. And I tell my clients is you have to think about who needs to hear what I have to say. When you make it not about you and that I need to say something, I need to show up, that's different. But if you're like, there's people out there who need to hear this message, then that's going to
Yeah,
help you to do it more. It's not about you. It's not about
yeah.
self-serving. It's about sharing your message so that
The
you can help
message.
other people. So that's how I show
Yeah.
up, and that's where I get my confidence from.
That is absolutely amazing. We share the same kind of idea as well. As long as I'm putting it out there, as long as I'm sharing it out there, as long as I'm making it not myself, but outside, people that need it, that want to be motivated, inspired, needs that mental health, need to understand what is going on, how to start things or do things or maintain things, sustain it. As long as I'm putting it out there, then I feel okay, within myself. I don't know who will be watching it. I don't know whose hand it will get to. But it's good that I do my own part. Yes, Ife, you are saying it. Tell us self-love. I know it is your thing. You've been talking about self-love for a long time. Please, what is this self-love? What is it all about?
So that's self-love. Many years ago, it was known as being conceited, to love yourself. You're so full of yourself. Look at you. And people
Yeah.
misunderstood it. Self-love is a gift that you give to yourself. And when you have it, you have confidence and you are kind and caring. The more you love yourself, the more you're able to love other people. And that's the bottom line. So if you really want to build connections, strong connections with your children, with your family, with your community, with your work colleagues, if you want to do it, you have to first build a connection with yourself. And that's about self-love. And now, what is self-love? It's about loving and allowing yourself to grow and respecting yourself and speaking to yourself in a way that's kind and caring and giving yourself the benefit of the doubt and forgiving
Yeah.
yourself. It's about being incredibly kind and conscious to yourself. And the more you love who you are, the more you're full to give love away. When I meet people who are arrogant, it's not because they love themselves, it's because they don't love themselves. They're arrogant because their arrogance is a way to protect themselves from feeling shame, feeling not good enough, self-hate. That's the difference. So I really want people to know that the first place to start is how you speak to yourself, is how you speak to yourself in the times when you do things that maybe are not aligned with your values or where you don't show up the way you want to. So say, for instance, you've been asked to deliver, I know, a wedding speech, and you
Yeah.
mess it up. Instead of going off and going, oh, I'm stupid, I'm rubbish, I'm no good, you say, well, you did your best, you tried hard, and you talk to yourself the same way
Yeah.
you would talk to a friend. And that's self-love. Self-love can be wrapped up in so many things. Self-love is taking your makeup off before you go to bed. Self-love is
Mm.
going to exercise. Self-love is choosing something healthy rather than something unhealthy when you know that you have a goal to be a certain
Yeah.
weight.
Yeah.
Self-love is having the boundaries, not letting people overstep your boundaries. Self-love is saying no when you really want to say no. Self-love
Mm.
is taking the time for you to do the thing that makes you feel good, not burning yourself out. Self-love is with you in the center and you giving yourself the kind of love that you would give to anybody else. It's about choosing yourself first so that you can love
Somebody
everyone.
somebody might say, okay, saying all of that, Ife, that is going to the person is selfish. What is the difference between that, being selfish and
Um,
self-loving?
Well, selfish, it's more like self-full. I think if you think someone is selfish, people just think about themselves and think about what is best for me. But when you have self-love, you're thinking about how can I make myself so full that I can give to other people. You're doing it with the bigger goal in mind. It's just, we've heard this saying about when you get on an aeroplane, make sure you put your own mask on before you try and put your child's on,
Yes.
and that's what
Mhm.
self-love is. It's saying, I'm going to make sure that I'm strong, I'm healthy, my mind's straight, that I feel nourished so that I can then pour into other people.
People.
The minute I
Mhm.
stop thinking about myself and making sure I am full, the minute I can't coach, I can't get on stage, I can't do my job because I'm drained, because there's nothing left. So the only way I can keep doing what I do, which I love doing, is by pouring into myself so that I can do the thing. So it's not
Yeah.
selfish. That's called self-full. I
Yeah.
need to be full
Yeah.
of myself so I can pour out to other people.
Absolutely amazing. Do you have to develop some kind of habits? Because I try so much, and I know that a lot of people that's consider themselves to be successful, they have some kind of habits that they have to keep. But do you have to develop some kind of habits to be able to be more focused, more mindful of your self-loving?
Yeah, definitely. Habits are part of it. And there's this one line that says habits are very hard. They're no habits are very easy to form and they're hard to break. So
Yeah.
if you get into a bad habit, it's very easy to get into a bad habit. Every night when you finish work, go home, have a glass of wine. That's a easy habit to get into, but it's a hard habit to break once you've got into it. So if you think about it the
Mm,
same way, things that are easy habits, like I'm going to drink a glass of water before I eat any food in the morning and before I check my phone, that can be a new habit. And then that's a hard habit to break because you then say, every day I do this. And if you are consciously aware of the habits, so they have
mm,
to be intentional as well. So it's not like some people go, oh, it just happens. It really doesn't. When you decide on a new habit, it's an intention. You intentionally think about this is going to be a new good habit. And that's how you are able, and also it raises your confidence and self-esteem. You know, if your
mm,
habit is every night I'm going to go to bed at 9:30 because I need a good night's sleep, and I'm going to get up at 5 a.m. before the sun rises, and I'm going to go and walk on my treadmill and do so many sit-ups. If you do that every day, you go to bed thinking, I did it. And your
yeah.
self esteem goes up, and you go, I'm in control. I'm the boss of my life. I do what I say I'm going to do. You feel good. But if you don't do it, and you get into a where you're like, oh, I know I said I was going to get up at 5. I know then you start to feel bad because you've got your self ideal, the kind
Yeah.
of person that you want to be, and then you've got the reality
Yeah.
of who you are. And you can't kid yourself. You can't lie to yourself. You know.
Yeah.
And then you start to build a self concept around who you think you are. Oh, I'm the kind of person who can't wake up early and work out. Now that's now a limiting belief. Now you're creating a habit of speaking to yourself and telling yourself the reason you can't do it is because of
Yeah.
excuse. So yeah, the
Yeah.
the best thing is once it starts and you start building these habits of the things that you say you're going to do and you do them, it becomes a feedback loop. It reinforces to you, oh my gosh, I did it. It
It's
felt good. Let me do
working.
it again. Let me do it
Yeah.
again. Let me do it again.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. And that's how you succeed because you are keeping to those habits that are positive, that you're reinforcing on a daily basis, and it helps you to achieve your goals, isn't it? At the end of the day, you're achieving those little goals, that small goals that builds up to bigger goals and to extraordinary goals. So you are,
Absolutely.
yeah, you're making so much sense, and this is why you've got one of the bestsellers. Please tell us the Power Lift book.
Oh, thank you so much. So I wrote a book called Power Lift Your Career in
Yeah,
2017. And
right.
this book, I wrote it because I wanted to break down the 12 steps to success. I wanted to give other people the steps. Just like I said in my dancing, I need the steps. And I knew people needed the steps for their career, their business, their mental health, their mindset. So I wrote the book, Power Lift Your Career, which is 12 Steps to Success. And this book has converted into an audio book, an online course. I've got an ebook, and now I've just created this video series, which is in my vault called Power Lift Your Career. It's in something called the Mind Workout Vault. So I have this vault with all my best videos, all my training masterclasses, and people. I did it yesterday with a group of young people, and we went through it together here in this room. Everyone took away a book, and we worked through it, and the feedback was amazing. People really understood that there is a step-by-step process to success. There's a formula. And yeah, my goal is just to give the formula to as many people as possible in any medium that they book, audio book, online course, come to one of my events and I'll talk about it. So yeah, that's it.
Wow. Wow. And I know someone like you has got so many things planned, projects, events, whatever it is. You've got so many. That's what keeps you going, isn't it? Tell us, what is next for you? What is next? You've got this
Wow.
wonderful book. You've got two already written. You are coaching. You are, a motivational speaker. You go about, you speak to all these people. What is next for you?
Um, the next thing for me really is so a lot's happened in the last year for me. I went to Nigeria and I spent time with my
I
birth
want you to
mum.
tell us a little bit about going to Nigeria because obviously this is someone that were you adopted, and how did you get connected to Nigeria?
So my parents are Nigerian, and I was born here in the UK. And 6 weeks after I was born, my parents went back to Nigeria, and they left me here in the UK. And I went to live with a family who was working with the Save the Children Foundation, and who raised me, loved me, cared for me for my entire life. But during the time, my mum got in touch with me and was in communication. But it had been about 17 years since I'd actually physically seen her. And I'd never been to Nigeria. So I was invited to do a TEDx talk in Abuja, and I contacted my birth mum and said, I'm going to be in Nigeria, shall we meet? And we stayed in a really beautiful hotel. She came to the talk, and we spent time together, and it was amazing. And while I was there, I got saved as well. So I like gave my life to Christ. I was saved. There was a pastor in the hotel that we were staying in that we got talking to, and I just made a decision. And then when I got back, I got married to my long-term boyfriend of 19 years because we got married. Um,
Wow.
so I've always loved God. Like my name, Ife Olua, is love of God. So I've always had a connection, but I'd never really given the wheel to God. I'd always gone, I'm in charge. I'm knocking down every door, anything I want. I was very focused, and I broke down a lot of doors and broke down a lot of barriers and reached most of my goals. But there was still something missing. There was still this sense of a little bit of this desperate energy to succeed. And then when
Yeah.
I was in Nigeria and I gave my life to Christ and I got saved, something changed for me, where I suddenly
Yes.
had literally said, God, you take the wheel. You can take the steering
Yeah.
wheel. You can.
Yeah.
And that's been my journey since May. I came back to the UK, got married to my partner, who's now my husband. We just had our 20th year being together. So we'd never got married all these years. And then finally we got married in June. And I've got two beautiful boys. And my life is now, when you say, what have I got next? Whatever God's plan is, that's
My,
next.
my goodness, you've done so much in a very short period of time. You need a rest. You need a bit of rest before jumping into another. Listen, I've enjoyed having you. I've enjoyed your speaking. I enjoyed your advice, your wisdom. And God has endowed you with so much wisdom. I don't think you could have done this by yourself. Even with all of those experiences you've had, I think God has given you wisdom to be able to speak to people, to be able to motivate people and coach people correctly. Whatever it is that you are led to do next, I wish you well in it, honestly. And I know you're going to do so much more within the community you are in, whatever it is that you are planning to do or doing right now. I think you're going to do so much in it. I want to encourage you. I don't know if you have any last thing to say to people who you want to recognize, talk to, like thank or whatever, and how people can connect with you. Just briefly tell us as we close. Honestly, I've really enjoyed you coming here today.
Well, thank you. Well, first of all, I want to say a big thank you and a shout out to Evelyn Asmi, because if it wasn't for Evelyn, we wouldn't have connected. And
So
Evelyn
true.
is one of these people that back in 2016, she made a space for me to come and speak to a group of ladies. And it was my first ever, ever, ever talk. And Evelyn, since then, has always been a cheerleader. And I think having people who believe in you and who cheer for you. She sends me messages like, "Oh, you're doing a great job," or "Go for it, girl. You've got this." And if it wasn't for Evelyn, we never would have met. There wouldn't have been the opportunity for me to speak at your Christmas event, and I wouldn't be here right now. So I think the message out is, if you can be a cheerleader and you can be a blessing to someone, be a blessing to someone. Be in the background building them up and sending them messages. And Evelyn is somebody I want to highlight because her mum recently passed away, and I know that
Yeah.
she's going through something really hard, and it is hard when you lose someone you love. So I just want to say, God bless to Evelyn and her family, and thank you to Evelyn for just being such an incredible behind the scenes cheerleader.
I'm sure wherever she is right now, she's listening to it, and also she probably will watch it later, just like everybody else. People will watch this and they'll continue to watch it over and over. Listen, you've been a blessing to me, and I'm sure you're gonna be a blessing to many that watch this, even now and later on, and even like years to come as well, and even to our listeners as well. So whatever it is that you're doing with your book, I wish you so much, and I wish you well. Thank you
Thank
so much,
you.
Ife Thomas, for coming to my show. And I wish, or I just want to thank all our listeners as well, and our viewers as well, to say thank you so much for joining us today. And you never know, we're gonna have you back again in the future. All the best.
Thank
Thank
you.
you
Bye
so much.
bye.
You. Bye bye now. See you again. Thank you.